Something strange about the way some people play games. They are not bad players. They are not lazy. They are not even unskilled. But still, every time the moment comes, they hesitate. They do not rush in. They do not take the shot. They do not push when the window is open. They hold back. And for a while, that may look smart. It may even look disciplined. But if you stay with this thought a little longer, you start to see something else hiding underneath. Fear. Not always loud fear. Not the kind that shakes your voice or makes your hands tremble. Sometimes fear is quiet. Sometimes it looks like caution. Sometimes it looks like patience. Sometimes it looks like, I am just being careful. But in many cases, it is fear wearing a mask. And that is where the real story begins. Because games are never just games. They reveal how the mind reacts under pressure. They expose the habits people carry into life. They show us who we are when the stakes rise. And one of the most common hidden patterns is this. People play safe because their brain would rather avoid pain than chase victory. That is not weakness. That is human nature. The brain is built to protect you. It does not care about your highlight reel. It does not care about your rank. It does not care about what you could become. It cares about survival. So when a risky moment appears, the brain immediately asks one question. What if this goes wrong? And once that question enters the mind, everything changes. The hands become slower. The reaction becomes softer. The courage becomes smaller. The move that should have been instinctive now becomes uncertain. Have you ever had that moment where you knew the opening was there, but you still did nothing? Have you ever felt your body freeze right when you should have moved? Have you ever thought, I should go now, but your mind kept pulling you back? That is the psychology of safe play. One of the strongest forces behind it is fear of failure. Fear of failure can make a skilled player look average. It can make a smart player look passive. It can make someone who understands the game completely still fail to act at the right moment. Because fear does not always stop you from moving. Sometimes it stops you from moving boldly. You still play, but you play with brakes on. You still fight, but you fight with hesitation. You still think, but you think too much. And when overthinking enters, instinct leaves. That is the beginning of the trap. A player starts to believe that safe decisions are always the best decisions. They start avoiding danger so often that avoidance becomes their identity. Then one day, they are no longer asking, how do I win? They are asking, how do I not lose? And that changes everything. Because the psychology of winning and the psychology of avoiding loss are not the same. When you play to win, you see opportunity. When you play not to lose, you see threat. When you play to win, your mind expands. When you play not to lose, your mind shrinks. When you play to win, you act. When you play not to lose, you wait. And waiting too long is often just another form of losing. This is where loss aversion enters the picture. Loss aversion means the mind reacts more strongly to loss than to gain. In simple words, losing hurts more than winning feels good. That is why one failed risky move can haunt a player for hours. Sometimes even days. The mind remembers the pain. It stores the embarrassment. It protects against repeating it. So next time, when the same kind of moment appears, the mind whispers, "Not again." And the player listens. Without realizing it, they begin to build their entire strategy around avoiding discomfort. But there is a cost. The cost is growth. Because growth rarely comes from total safety. Growth comes from intelligent tension. From pressure. From action. From stepping into moments that feel slightly uncomfortable. Not reckless. Not careless. But uncomfortable enough to force development. That is what many safe players avoid. They call it caution, but deep inside it is uncertainty. And uncertainty grows strongest when self-belief is weak. That is why self-efficacy matters so much. Self-efficacy is the belief that you can handle what is in front of you. It is not arrogance. It is not false confidence. It is quiet inner trust. If a player believes, I can make this work, they move differently. They decide faster. They stay calmer under pressure. They recover quicker after mistakes. But if that belief is weak, even small decisions start feeling heavy. Should I go now? Should I wait? What if I fail? What if I get punished? What if I throw the game? And just like that, the mind becomes a courtroom. Every possible move is put on trial before it is ever made. The result is hesitation. And hesitation in games is expensive. It steals timing. It steals rhythm. It steals momentum. It steals confidence. That is why many players do not actually need a new mechanic. They need a new mindset. Because the real enemy is not always the opponent on the screen. Sometimes the real enemy is the fear inside the player. Here is the thing nobody says clearly. Sometimes you are not losing because you lack skill. You are losing because you are too busy protecting yourself to fully play. That changes everything, doesn't it? There is another layer too. Some people play safe because of past pain. Maybe they took a big risk before and got punished badly. Maybe they were blamed for the loss. Maybe they felt embarrassed. Maybe they made one bold move and everything collapsed. The brain never forgets emotional pain easily. It stores it. It protects against it. And later, in a similar situation, it replays the memory as a warning. This is how behavior becomes conditioned. Safe play begins as a response to pain, then slowly becomes a habit, and then eventually becomes a personality. At that point, the player may not even realize they are being driven by old experiences. They just think, this is how I play. But the truth is, how you play is often shaped by what you fear. And fear can be learned. Just like confidence can be learned. That is the encouraging part. Because if fear can be built over time, it can also be unbuilt over time. The first step is awareness. You have to notice when you are being strategic and when you are being scared. You have to notice when you are calculating and when you are hiding. You have to notice when your caution is wisdom and when it is just discomfort avoidance. That distinction changes everything. Because safe play is not always bad. Sometimes safe play is the smartest move on the board. Sometimes patience is better than pressure. Sometimes defense wins the game. Sometimes holding position is the right decision. But there is a massive difference between smart safety and fearful safety. Smart safety is chosen. Fearful safety is automatic. Smart safety is a strategy. Fearful safety is a reflex. And the problem starts when the reflex begins to control the strategy. This is where the Yerkes-Dodson law gives a powerful insight. It says performance is best at an optimal level of pressure. Too little pressure can make a person passive. Too much pressure can make them panic. That means the goal is not to eliminate pressure. The goal is to manage it. A complete lack of pressure makes people lazy. Too much pressure makes them freeze. But the right amount of pressure creates sharpness. It creates focus. It creates presence. It creates performance. That is why elite players often look calm on the outside, but internally they are fully engaged. They are not reckless. They are not terrified. They are balanced. And balance is everything. Another reason people play safe is because their mind becomes trapped in prediction. They do not respond to the present moment. They predict disasters that have not happened yet. If I move, maybe I lose. If I push, maybe I get punished. If I take this fight, maybe I ruin the game. Notice how the mind creates a story before the story exists. That is cognitive distortion. That is overthinking. That is threat inflation. The mind makes the danger look larger than it really is. And once that happens, the player starts reacting to imagination instead of reality. That is one of the most dangerous things in any game, and honestly, in life too. Because the moment you start fearing imagined failure more than actual opportunity, you begin living smaller than you are meant to live. And that shrinking does not happen all at once. It happens quietly. One cautious choice. Then another. Then another. Until boldness feels unnatural. Until action feels risky. Until hesitation feels normal. That is why this issue matters. Because playing safe is not just a style. It can become a pattern of living. A person who always avoids risk in games may also avoid risk in conversations. They may avoid risk in work. They may avoid risk in relationships. They may avoid situations where they could be seen, judged, or challenged. And in that way, games become a mirror. They show you the architecture of your mind. If you always hold back, maybe it is not because you are disciplined. Maybe it is because you do not fully trust yourself yet. If you always wait, maybe it is not because you are smart. Maybe it is because failure feels too expensive. If you never take the shot, maybe it is not because the shot is bad. Maybe it is because you are afraid of what happens after. And once you see that clearly, you have a choice. You can keep living inside the pattern. Or you can break it. Breaking it does not mean becoming wild. It does not mean playing stupid. It does not mean chasing every fight. It means learning to act with intention instead of fear. It means choosing courage over comfort when the moment demands it. It means understanding that some losses are part of growth. Some mistakes are part of learning. Some risks are part of becoming better. Because the player who never risks may stay safe. But the player who never risks also stays limited. And that is the quiet tragedy of playing safe all the time. It protects you from pain, but it also protects you from possibility. So the real question is not, why do you play safe? The real question is, are you playing safe because it is smart, or because you are afraid? That question can change everything. Because once you start seeing your fear clearly, it loses some of its power. And once fear loses power, confidence has room to grow. And once confidence grows, your game changes. Not just your game. Your life. Before this ends, think about your last game. Did you play the best move, or did fear make it for you? If that question hit you, comment "safe" below. And stay close, because the next one goes even deeper into the psychology of winning.